Hi, everyone, and welcome to part 2 of our 3-part STEM series. Today's will be on computer science resources for the K-5 classroom. My name is Sean Abley. I'm with the Gilbert Public School District. I'm currently an a technology coach, and prior to that, I've taught computers to K through 12, and now with the adults as a technology coach. My contact information is on the screen, as well as a link to my website. All of these documents are going to be available in the slide deck after, so please feel free to just follow along, and then you can get the links from the slide deck. Check my hotspot regularly because there are constantly updates on there with new technology resources. Our objectives today are to provide grade level appropriate ideas and resources to incorporate computer science into the K-5 classes for 2020, 2021, and beyond that. Arizona has 2 sets of standards that relate to technology. The first are the Arizona Computer Science Standards that were adopted in 2018. There is a link to the full document here. And the second are the Educational Technology Standards that were adopted in 2009. Currently, the Department of Ed has begun the process to update these standards with a hopeful completion date of January 2021. And the difference between the two is computer science is really a study of computer science, the algorithms, coding, and ethics and impacts of computing, where educational technology standards talk about incorporating technology into your current classes. Both kind of cover a lot of the same things, but computer science is really a study of the science of computers. The computer science standards consist of the computing systems, networking in the internet, data analysis, algorithms and programming, and impacts of computing. And what you'll see today are many of these things are already covered in your everyday use of technology in the classroom. So there's a lot of things that you currently do that incorporate the computer science standards, and you might not even know about them. So the main question is, why would we even want to teach computer science? And these statistics are from Codeorg, and the 2 main ones that I really like to address are the Arizona statistics that indicate that we have almost 16,000 open computing jobs. For that, we've only had 1,000 computer science graduates, and I believe that these statistics are from 2016. It might be 2018. But that's a huge gap in the people that are graduating with the credentials to be able to take over those jobs. And if you look nationwide, there are over 633,000 open computing jobs, and only 71,000 students qualified to fill those. So you could see that there nationally there's a huge gap, as well as locally. So this alone would be one of the greatest reasons to teach computer science. I'm going to go to the statistics from Codeorg because they do offer some others that I think you might be interested in. So, and they update these as they get the data. But as of, I want to say this is 2016, 90% of parents want their child to study computer science, where only 45% of the high schools actually teach it. And part of that is due to demand because they haven't been introduced to it at a young age, so they're not even sure that that's a possibility when they get into high school. This is the other one that I really like, is what subjects do students like a lot? And the students report over 54% are indicating that they like the computer science and engineering. It's up there with performing arts and art and design. So if we can learn ways to incorporate computer science into our other core curriculum, it might be something that turns out to be more enjoyable for our students. So these statistics, again, are available at Codeorg, and there is a link from the slide deck to that. What I wanted to bring you down to is this graphic. And what I like about this is it initially starts with the nationwide, but then you can click on the states. And I gave you the statistics for Arizona, over 17,000 jobs available, 1,000 graduates. But if you look at even our surrounding areas where some of our students may end up after graduation, if you look at California, over 97,000 jobs with only 7,000 graduates. That means that there's 90,000 jobs there with nobody to fill them. New Mexico's a little bit lower, but they still see that huge gap. So you could see that introducing students to computer science and computational thinking at a young age may start to drive them to be more interested in it as they go into high school and beyond. Some ideas on incorporating computer science into your regular classes are to use technology as an extension of the core curriculum. I'm going to show you a bunch of ways that you may already be doing this and offer you some other ideas that you might be able to integrate into your classes. Incorporating computer science projects that relate to the core curriculum. So for example, allowing students to create 3D objects of something that they're studying, or talking about digital citizenship when you're talking about social studies things. Computer science activities are great for stations and small group because a lot of them are self-guided. So you as a teacher could be working with a small group of students while other students are working on a CS activity. And then lastly, just being aware of the computer science and educational technology standards and thinking of ways on how you might be able to tweak your teaching just a little bit in order to incorporate those into your classes. So this is my warning label because there's going to be a ton of information on this slide deck, on this presentation for you. So just follow along. You'll have links to all of these available on the slide deck that you can reference later. So what I want to show you, I've created, when the computer science standards were adopted in 2018, I looked at them, and the original document is a 90-page document, right around 90 pages. And I thought of presenting that to the teachers that I support. And in elementary especially, we have teachers that are trying to address the ELA standards, math standards, science standards, social studies standards. And then if I just presented them with this document of the CS standards, I thought that their heads might explode. So as a prior computer teacher, I thought, what if I went through and broke these down by grade level and then by individual standard so that the teachers had a document that they could really dive into and use, even if they just pulled pieces out of it. So these are all links to separate documents separated by grade level. And I'm just going to go to the second grade one and show you what they look like. The first part is the description that comes right from the Department of Ed website in the standards, and then it breaks them all down. It first says, if you want to fulfill all of the CS standards, create a course in Codeorg and let your students go through that, and they will then have met all of the CS standards. But if you're not willing to do that, or you don't have time to do that, or you can't dedicate enough time for the students to go through that whole course, there are a ton of ways that you really can still do that. So in these documents, they're broken down by each of the concepts. So the first one is computing systems. I scroll down a little bit. Networks in the internet, data and analysis, algorithms and programming, and lastly, impacts of computing. It's got to be down here somewhere. There it is. And within each of those, I took the individual standards. I'm going to go back up to the top. I took each one of the individual standards and broke it down. So the first part is the standard as it is written in the documents that you get from the Department of Ed. The second part identifies ways that the teachers may already be incorporating this standard into their classrooms. And the third is some extension ideas should they want to reinforce these things in their classrooms. So I've done that for each one of the standards at all grade levels, kindergarten through 5th grade. So you can see, though, you can get a link to those and check those out on your own. But what I want to do is show you just one basic one. So for example, under computer systems, hardware and software, the first standard is understand how computing systems use both hardware and software to process information. And then it gives a description of that standard right from the Department of Ed's website with the standards listed. And then it indicates, I thought about how are teachers already doing this standard. And with the students, the best way to do that is just to use proper terminology when you're talking to them about their computers. So instead of just saying click or left click, tell them to click on the trackpad of their Chromebook. So adding some of those vocabulary terms that introduce them to these things at a young age, so as they get older, they're using proper terminology, knowing the difference between your smart board and the projector, talking about your monitor, or instead of calling it your screen, calling it your monitor, and things like that. So using proper terminology when you're talking to students, and even making sure that you're vocalizing the things that you might be doing. So when you're demonstrating to a student, I'm going to right click on my mouse and it'll bring up a new menu. Now you're talking about software that's working with your hardware to make things work. So just talking about these things while you're doing it starts to put that vocabulary in the students' vocabulary at a very young age. So they start to learn these things as they get older. And then it has extension ideas. So for example, this first one is just a link. Oops. Where they would go in and cut and paste to make their own computer. And it gives you all of it's a full lesson plan, and tells you how long it would be. So they cut the different pieces out, they identify what these pieces are, and then they put them all together. So this might be something that you could do, again, as a station activity. The kids could be working on that while you're doing something else with other students. Different things have, so for example, this one also has a video, parts of a computer slideshow, lots of different opportunities for you to incorporate computer science into your regular classrooms. Here's another one for troubleshooting. When they say, my screen is black, responding to them that your monitor is black. Do you think the battery died? Should we plug it in? Rather than just taking it and handling it for them, talking through what some of those troubleshooting process might look like. So again, we have them for every grade level. I'm going to pause this for a second so that you can take an opportunity to look at your grade level, and then we'll come on back. Okay, I hope you had a good opportunity to look through some of those documents that relate to the grade level that you teach. If you have questions or comments about any of those things, please let me know and I'll gladly help you with those. If you ran into something that required permissions to get to it, that's totally my fault. I apologize. Let me know and I will open those up for you too. So after I created those, this year we started working with Common Sense, and I loved the layout that they had for their Common Sense digital citizenship curriculum, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So what I did is I went back into these documents and started creating lesson plans for each one of the concepts. So I've started so far with computing systems, and this is my side project, so I work on these on my own time. I hope to have a lot more of these done over the summer, but I currently got through 3rd grade, and I'll show you what these look like as well. If you don't see your grade band in here, just stay tuned because they'll be available on my hotspot website, so you'll be able to see those. And I'm just going to stick with 2nd grade because I went with 2nd grade over here. So what this is a complete lesson plan that will cover all of the standards within computing systems. So you can see there's 4 different standards that fall under computing systems, and I incorporated them all together for one lesson. So within this lesson, it does have slides. So I'll open that up so you can see what I'm talking about. So this is a slide deck that you would present with your students. It has the essential question, lesson objectives, and then this one has a warm-up activity, and then down on the bottom it has the different the script that goes along with it, so you could present this right to your students. It has a full class activity, and then some discussions. And then as you go, it takes it to their turn. And these are designed to be in station rotations, but if you choose to do those individually, that's up to you as well. So it has the slideshow, gives a little information that what the teacher might have to have in order to be prepared. And then it has the warm-up activities, some vocabulary, the applications that will be used, and how I broke it up. And again, I did all of mine as stations, but it indicates how long each one of these stations would be. So maybe you just had 10 minutes to do something with your students, and you only wanted to do this part of it. You could totally do it that way, and then go through and do the stations. You could, again, do those full classroom activities or do them individually. So this gives the specific instructions for station 1. I'll show you what that looks like. This is what the students would get, and they would type their name below and then insert a picture of an apple. So that is the second grade skill that they're working on. And the instructions that you gave prior to the whole group would give that instruction on how they would do that. So this goes through the entire activity. It has all the resources listed individually should you want to use them that way. And again, I've done that currently only for the computing systems for kinder, first, second, and third grade. But again, this is a personal project, and I want these available to all of my teachers, so I hope that you could find these useful as well. The last one I want to show you right here under the grade level aligned are the unplugged activities. And Codeorg offers unplugged activities which do not require a device. So when you come here, they have all these different activities available to do with your students. And all of these are completely hands-on, but no device necessary. And they range from kindergarten through 8th grade levels. So there's a lot of different ones that would work in here. One of my favorites, let's see, where is it? The big event, there it is, was the big event. So I'm just gonna go to this so you can see an example of what it looks like. Again, this has a full lesson plan available, but what the big event is a controller. And you can print this out, you can post it up or project it from your computer. What I actually did was just print out different shapes. And I did this with a preschool class, and I also did it with first and a second grade class. But we put those shapes up there. We did it with preschool because they were learning their shapes in geometry, and we thought that that might be a good way to incorporate shapes and computer science. So you present this to the students, and then you let them know that these are going to be buttons. And right now they're just shapes, but as soon as we program them to do something, then they become buttons. So I had them up on a board, and what I did was I said, when I touch the green star, what do you think should happen? And I let the students decide, and one student said, we should jump up one time. I said, okay, so when I push the green star, you're gonna jump up one time. So I would push the green star, and all the preschoolers jumped up one time and sat back down. So we've programmed that button to do something. So now it's not just a star, it's a button. And then naturally we're with preschoolers, so some of them are jumping 4 and 5 times, and some didn't jump at all. So we stop everything and say, uh-oh, there seems to be a problem with our program. We need to debug it. So we're talking about these things. Now we're incorporating geometry. When I talk about the colors, then we're talking about a green star, so we're working on colors at that level, and programming. So this is a great way to start introducing the concepts of programming so that they can start to understand those things as they progress through computer science activities. And again, like there's tons of them in there in that code.org where you could find all kinds of different stuff. I encourage you to look through those things and find some that would work in your classroom. And the kids love it. There was actually a tour that went through, a parent tour while we were doing that, and the parents of the students that they were thinking of enrolling in that school were super impressed that we were teaching preschool kids programming concepts. So will your preschoolers be able to program at the end of that? Probably not. but they've learned some terminology that will be applicable as they advance through grades. So I'm going to pause this for a second. So again, you can take a look at some of those things, and after probably about 5 minutes, and then respond in the chat with one thing you can apply right away next school year. We'll come back in about 5 minutes. It looks like you guys had some great ideas on how to use those next year. So I'm going to break these down into the different categories and just talk about a couple from each one that I just pulled out, some of my favorite ones. So under computing systems, my advice, when you want to teach students about hardware, take apart an old computer. I'm sure that somebody in the IT department has old computers sitting around that they're no longer using and maybe don't know what to do with. To ask if you can have one and open it up and let them touch these things. Let them see what the RAM looks like. Let them see what the motherboard looks like. Because they're not allowed to take computers apart, generally speaking. But this way, it's a hands-on experience and it becomes less foreign to them. And this could be done at any level. It might be a mouse and a keyboard for your young kids. And then as you get older, have them identify the motherboard and the CPU and those kind of things. This is a great video about computer parts. So I'll just open this up really quick.
Data is stored. When your computer tells you you're running low on space, it's because your hard drive is arranged in these long
the different parts of a computer
from your hard drive.
You can demonstrate this to the students so that they're able to get a better understanding of the different components in their computer. The next thing is the tech expert. And my favorite thing is to assign a tech expert in the classroom. And if you're not familiar with what a tech expert would do, they would be like your line leader or your paper passer or the lunch counter or whatever other jobs that you have in the classroom. Assign a tech expert. And what the tech expert does is they keep track of the Chromebooks, if you have Chromebooks in your class, the iPads or whatever devices you have. They make sure they're all plugged in. They make sure that the cart is plugged in so that the computers are charging when necessary. And then they would be the first person that students would ask for troubleshooting tips. So if somebody is having an issue with their computer, rather than coming to you and interrupting you during a lesson, they would go to the tech expert and the tech expert would help. This is also a student that when you're presenting a new technology, perhaps you wanted to do Flipgrid or you wanted to do something in Google Docs and you're trying to teach this to the class, you tell your tech expert, I need you to pay very close attention because if anyone needs help, they're going to come to you first. So what I like to do is in the beginning of the year, identify a student that is a little more tech savvy than the others, and I train that student as the first tech expert. And after a week or two, then you switch jobs and you have that tech expert with you train a new tech expert. And then the next thing you know, you have a whole class of tech experts that are now able to troubleshoot their own things, and they're paying closer attention because somebody might ask them for help. So a tech expert is a great job to have in your classroom. With networks and the internet, I really liked this color your password. I created this because I was teaching kinder through 8th grade at one time. And if you've ever tried to help a kinder or first grader log into the computer, kinder especially, it is probably one of the hardest things I've ever done. Because kindergartners in the very beginning of the year, not all of them know their letters and not all of them know their numbers. And we all know that the letters and numbers are what we use to log in the computers. So what I did was I printed one of these out for each student, and then I wrote their username and passwords on these. And then they colored them. So they would find the B, they would color the B red down here and color the B red down here. Then it was a 2, so they would color the 2 blue, color the 2 blue up here. So it was a color code, so they have an easier time finding those things on their keyboard when they were trying to log in. And this was a lot of upfront work. For me, I had 4 different classes of kindergartners, so it was almost 100 kids. But the long-term effects of it were phenomenal because I didn't have to log these kids in every time for the entire year. So I like that color, the keyboard. This site, Safe Online Surfing, is developed by the FBI, and this is for upper grades 3rd through 8th, but some of them might be appropriate for maybe a 2nd grade, or if you wanted to do this as a teacher-led one rather than the students doing these individually. So I'll look at the 3rd grade, and what it has are little activities that go along with networking and security. So the first one is safe surfing, and you have to help him get to his surfboard. And it'll come up with a question, and you answer the question. So this, again, might be a little bit harder for a 1st and 2nd grade classroom to do individually. But if you chose to do that as a lesson that you worked on a projector as a whole class activity, it was definitely something that they could do. And then it walks them through all the different stages of networking and security. And then Nova Labs is more for an upper elementary. They have stuff for a lot of different resources. They have things for science and different parts of science, but they also have this Cybersecurity Lab. And this, again, is probably for our upper grades, maybe 4th and 5th, even up into 6th through 8th. But they go through a game that that teaches them about cybersecurity. And then it has videos and quizzes and other things that would go along with it. So again, this might be something that you did as an activity with your students. It could be one of those heat advisory days when you're in and you're not sure what to do. You'd like them to be doing something educational, but you'd also like them to be doing something fun because it is their recess time too. So this could be something that you worked on with them. Data analysis is probably one of my favorites. I love data. I love to collect data. I love to look at data. I like to make graphs with my data. So this is one of my favorite things to do. The first example on here is a sample data log. And I initially created this to track words per minute for a reading class. So the students tracked their words a minute alone, and then they tracked it with their teacher. And initially they get a blank graph. So they get the blank graph and they type in their words. So maybe they had 14 words and then 17 words the next time. And then maybe they had 10 after that. And then they went back to 18, 19. And then when they went with their teacher, maybe they had 15 and 17. This time they had 16. So they can see the actual graphs that go along with these. And then they can make some assumptions based on the data that they're seeing. So for example, this one's really low. And it's a good opportunity to talk to the student with, why do you think it was so low that day? And then the student can think, well, I was distracted by another student, so maybe I should do something, or maybe I should do these by myself. Or I hadn't been practicing, so it might have slipped. And then you can also compare the data that the teacher had along with them and say, well, why do you think yours is higher with the teacher? And maybe they feel more confident with the teacher, or maybe it turns out theirs are actually lower with the teacher and they get nervous with the teacher. So you're incorporating these time tracking things into ELA, but they're actually doing data analysis in their classrooms using the technology. You can create pictographs with Google Drawings. So in Google Drawings, you can let it load. You can actually create things with shapes. So maybe you wanted to do circles. And there were 4 blue circles. Oops. So this would be something for our younger grades when you're graphing with younger students. Maybe the next one was triangles. And there were only 2 triangles. So you can create pictographs with your students in Google Drawing. Again, this is simple to do, and our younger learners are able to do these things. And then lastly, collecting data using Google Forms. And I've done Google Forms with 3rd grade up, and they enjoy it. They create their own Google Forms, or you can create a Google form and then you can analyze the data together. This link here just takes you to a YouTube video on how to do Google Forms if you're not familiar with them or you're not sure how to do those. Under algorithms and programming, here are a few that I had come up with. I talked about the big event a little bit earlier, that Unplugged activity, a really fun activity to do with your younger students. Creating interactive adventure stories in Google Slides. And what this is they start on one slide and they make a choice, and when they click a button, it takes them to another slide. This is provided by Google for Education under their Applied Digital Skills. And I'm going to show you, this is a full lesson for the students, and it walks them through it. So you don't even have to know how to do it, and it'll do that. It'll do the teaching for you. So it starts with a video, then they click next, and then it has a little survey, and then it goes into how to do it. So write an if-then adventure story, and it'll tell them how to do it. It'll give them the starter project, so it gives them a template to use. Automatically makes a copy for them, and they start to write their story. And this website from Google for Education for their Applied Digital Skills will walk them through the entire process. So again, you don't have to be present for this. This is probably for maybe a 3rd, 4th, 5th for sure could do this and up. And they work through this together. This one has them doing it as a group, which is totally fine. You can have it done as a group or individually. Using it as a group, it starts to work on those collaboration skills and some of the other things that are identified in the CS standards. Applied Digital Skills has tons of other resources to incorporate computer science into the core curriculum. So I encourage you to check out all of that they have to offer too. And then Codeorg is a full website that offers computer science lessons that are, again, self-guided, and they go from every level from kinder through high school. So there's an entire website dedicated to that. It's all free. You can do individual activities one at a time, or you can go through the full course curriculum. I would highly encourage you to check that out. We're actually doing a full training on Codeorg on June 11th, so please feel free to join us for that if you'd like to know more. And then lastly, the impacts of computing. I mentioned Common Sense Media earlier in this presentation, and Common Sense Media has one of the best digital citizenship curriculum that I've seen. So when you click on it, it takes you to their website. You need to make sure that you're logged in. I'm already logged in. If you're not, it'll ask you to create or to log in using Google. But when you're logged in, and again, it's free, but when you're logged in, then you have some resources that you don't have if you aren't. And what they have is 6 different topics in digital citizenship. So if you click on it, they also have different ones for every grade level. So I'm just going to go with 3rd. And you can see that when I went to 3rd, it gives you the 3rd grade and the 6 different topics, or 6 different lessons that they have to go along with the 6 different topics that there are. And honestly, you could click on this and teach it right now, sight unseen. They're really that good. So I'm just going to go to Password Power Up. And then it gives you an overview, but I'm going to just click on the lesson plan because this is the most important part. In the lesson plan, it tells you the time that it'll take for each portion of this, and it gives you a script to go along with all of the resources that they have available. So I'm going to go here and open the lesson slides. And again, this is what I designed my computer science lessons that we talked about earlier in this presentation. I kind of designed them off of their ideas because I really liked the way that these were set up. So it gives you, again, the essential question, learning objectives, a warm-up activity, vocab, and then the whole lesson that goes along with it. And again, all of the script is right here on the site too. So this is awesome if you wanted to present digital citizenship lessons. It's also a great activity if you had a sub in class and you wanted them to be able to present something to your students that was useful and applicable, but maybe something a little bit more fun for the kids. This also has, what I really love is it has these family activities and that can be included in like a newsletter so that the parents know that you're teaching digital citizenship as well. This has, again, the lesson slides, and then it has handouts if you wanted to do handouts. But you can also, rather than printing them all off, you can do this as a full class activity on your projectors. And then this site has some links to short videos about internet safety. And those can be played at the beginning of school when kids are putting their backpacks away and you're trying to do attendance, because usually they're about 2 to 3 minutes, and just give little short lessons about internet safety. So I know that was a ton of information. Hopefully you found something in there that'll be useful to you, that you'll be able to use right away when classes start up in 2020, 2021. Again, if you have any questions or if you have any comments or suggestions, if you're having trouble accessing anything that is included in that slideshow, please feel free to contact me. There's my contact information. I'm Sean Abley. Sarah Sleesman is the Director of STEM at the Department of Education, and she is also a great resource for these things as well. So I hope that you found these things useful. Be sure to check back at my hotspot website. I'll give you a quick preview of it. It has the webinars on here, as well as some computer science lessons. These are the documents that were included in the beginning of that, and then the new sub-concept full lesson plans. So this is where those new ones will be as I develop those as well. I also have a ton of information on my newsletter, so feel free to check some of those out. They always have some good tips and tricks for technology. So I hope that you found this useful. Please check back and contact me at any time. Thank you.